Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. We're truly thankful to be here this morning and to be able to look into the Word of Yah, because we have long since held that truth or wisdom does not reside in the creeds of organizational dogma, but in the diligent search, in the quest, the desire to reason with Yahweh. That's our objective this morning. Hence, our subject is the faculty of divine reasoning, the faculty of divine reasoning. You see, the world that we see is but a shadow of a greater reality that we cannot plumb except by revelation from Yahweh. And so we're here today not so much to impose answers to your questions, but to deepen your curiosity, ignite that spark whereby your own inquiry into the Word will fan into flame that spark that is rising up in you, so it becomes an unquenchable flame. That's the objective this morning as we look at the faculty of reasoning. Now, turn with me to the book of Chronicles, First Chronicles, and chapter 12, and we will read verse 32, as was read earlier. And the word here says, "And the children of Yishakar, who had understanding of the times, to know what Israel should do, their chiefs were 200, and all their brothers were at their command." The children of Yishakar, they knew what Israel, the nation of Israel, was supposed to do, and everybody came to them to ascertain what should be done. Now, think of that in the same light you think of Acts chapter 17 in verse 11, where we are told the Bereans, these were more noble than those in Thessalonica, because they received the word readily with an open mind. And then they went home, searched the scriptures daily to ascertain whether these things were so. Now, understand the three groups of people. The Thessalonians, we're told that they received the word by arguments. They were convinced by arguments. And some people are that way. You can sway them by way of the strength of how you language your argument. The Bereans were different. They received the word readily in their minds, but they didn't stop there. They went home and they checked out what Paul and the others were saying to see if these things were so. What scriptures do you think they were studying? They were studying the Old Testament, because at that time there was no New Testament. So they understood what Paul was saying to be true. But the distinction between them and the Ishikarites, the children of Issachar, is that the children of Issachar not only understood, they knew how to act. They knew how to respond. Because it's one thing to have knowledge. It's another thing to understand how to appropriate the knowledge that you have. And this is where we find virtue in referencing the children of Issachar. They knew how Israel should respond. And in the world that we're living, where the body, which is the believers in Yeshua, often seem disconnected from the head. We need to know how to respond to the head, because Paul tells us that the assembly is the body of Yeshua, he being the head. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of a chiropractor, is that if you went to a chiropractor and you were not in alignment, in that the lumbar part of your back here that sends the messages to the brain, the spinal column, was not in a line with the head, the chiropractor would most likely tell you that you have subluxation. And I believe many today are suffering from spiritual subluxation, in that they are not aligned to the head, and therefore the body is out of line with the Messiah, the head. And so this morning, we would like to heed the invitation that Yah sends out to us in Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 18. He says, "Come now, and let us reason together, said Yahweh. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool." Understand where we're going with this. Yah is one who speaks outside of the dimensionality of time. He's outside of time. But as he speaks as one who sees the end from the beginning. And only someone who is outside of the dimensionality of time could speak that way, because he made time and he put man in time, and he looks at it even as he sees 1,000 years ahead. He sees it as we see things today. And he knows that we do not understand the things that he has sent out, all of them. And so he says, "Come, let us reason together. Because though your sins are insurmountable, that's how they appear to you, I can cleanse you from them. I can expunge them from your record." That's what he's saying. And so we want to look at some of the paradoxes and statements put forward by the Messiah in his word today, so we can make sense of them. But I don't want to leave you hanging with the statement regarding the children of Issachar. So come with me to chapter 7 of the same book, Chronicles, and we will read verse 5. The word says, let's put it this way. David is about to be made king, because David's house, the house of David, is increasing while the house of Saul is decreasing. And all the people are now coming to David to make him king. All of them. Thousands of people are coming to make David king because the time is now right. And so as we look at that situation and we look at it in the context of what's happening or what is happening in America today, people are coming together to determine who they should vote for, because they believe that the next president or the next prime minister will be the one to make the country great again. That's how they think. And so the people here had suffered much under King Saul, Shaul. And many of them knew that David had been anointed and had waited long in the shadows to succeed Saul, and the time was now right. And so they were coming to pay obeisance and to support David. Many of them were mighty men, men of warriors who recognize the time is right for David to be king. But I want to read verse 5. And their brothers, all the clans of Issachar, were mighty, brave men. Did you hear that? It says all the clans of Issachar were mighty, brave men, listed by their genealogies, 87,000 in all. The children of Issachar, we're told, they were 87,000 strong. Don't miss that. But the word here cogently declares that of that 87,000, only 200 knew what Israel ought to do in the time of trouble. Only 200 knew. And so if you use that as a principle and perhaps conjecture a thought and ask yourself, of the many thousand churches, religions that exist today, how many really know what Israel ought to do? And I'm not talking about geographical Israel. I'm talking about the Israel of Yah in Galatians 6:16. The people who have accepted Yeshua and are obedient to the Torah. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of Israel that I'm talking about. So there are 87,000 strong, but only 200 chiefs. Whether or not they represent the other rest of them, but we see that many are called, but only few are chosen. And so we will now turn to the book of Matthew, Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22, and we will begin at verse 15. Matthew, as you perhaps know, his gospel was written for the Jewish people at the time. And he says, then the Pharisees went and plotted out to trap him in his own words. People do that from time to time. Oh, you said that. But what did you mean? And so it was, they were trying to trap the Messiah in his own word. And we'll see how he dealt with them and how we ought to borrow the principles and behavioral skills from him to deal with issues. He always questioned the questioner to expose them to their own assumptions. we must do that from time to time and expose them to their own flawed logic. So it says, then the Pharisees went and plotted how to trap him. I'm reading this for emphasis in his own words. And they sent to him their Talmidim with the Herodians. So here were the leaders at the time, the Herodians, many of which were in collaboration with Rome, the intent of which is to trap the Messiah in his word. Can you believe that? Just think of that for a moment. The king of the universe, the great designer who designed the universe, you are trying to trap him in his own word. You see how foolish people can be. And this foolishness did not start in the contemporary era. It's way back. They're trying to trap him. Let's read on. So they said to him, Teacher, we know that you are true. You see the duplicity here? And to teach the way of Elohim in truth, and it does not concern you about anyone, for you are not partial to any man. Then say to us, what do you think? Is it right to pay taxes to Kaiser? We say Caesar, or not. Is it okay for us to pay taxes to Caesar? That's what they want to know. And the intent here, perhaps you might miss it, is that if he says yes, then one group of people would accuse him. And if he says no, then the Herodians who are collaborating with Rome would say, see, he doesn't give any thought to Caesar, who is our king. And the other group would say to him, well, he prefers Rome than he prefers Israel. So they're trying to sandwich him in their foolishness. But as I indicated earlier, he speaks outside of the dimensionality of time. His dimension is different. He sits up on the earth, says Isaiah, and he looks from the position of the circle of the earth, and he sees us, and he sees them. They want to know, because we're reasoning, is it right to pay tax to Caesar? And what did he say? But knowing their wickedness, knowing their thoughts, said, why do you try me? What are you trying to do? You hypocrites. He gave them their proper names. And we ought to call people out when we see that. You hypocrites, show me the coin of the tax. And they brought to him a silver piece. And he said to them, whose likeness and inscription is this? They said to him, Kaiser's. It's Caesar's. And he said to them, then give to Kaiser what is Kaiser's, and to Elohim what is Elohim. Don't miss the point. Whose inscription is on this coin? Whose head is on this dollar? Whose head? Washington? Benjamin? Franklin? Because we've got to make truth relevant to the times in which we live. It has to be existentially relevant, and it has to be consistent. And it has to be verifiable. It has to be here in the word, because Isaiah said, if they speak not according to the word, it's because there is no light in them. Isaiah 8 in verse 20. So I'm trying to bring it home to make it more practicable to us. Whose head, whose image is on this? And they said, Caesar. We would say Washington, Franklin. He said, give that to whom it belongs. But that which is yours, give it to him. What is he saying? You see, our subject is the faculty of divine reasoning. He's alluding to Genesis 1:27. Because the word says, and Yah made man in his own image and his own likeness. And he's saying, when I made you, you are trying to catch me out. You are trying to fox me out. When I made you, I made man, I made Adam in my own image. So Adam belongs to me, and all the generation of Adams, sons of Adam, who followed him, belong to me. Why don't you give yourself to me? But give the money to Caesar. They missed the point. They missed the point. Verse 22, join me there. And having heard what he said, they marveled. They did what? They marveled and left him and went away. That's the Herodians. He dealt with them. When you're dealing with foxes, that's how you deal with them. You don't need weapons except you have weapons of words. It's a two-edged sword he uses. And this is why we're told we need to know how to handle the word, because it's a two-edged sword. It's a weapon. And truth, as you know, is offensive to people. And, you know, we have enough here in this word to offend different groups of people. And we will supply you liberally with truth because we know you're going to be offended except you repent. And so, verse 22, again, for the emphasis, and having heard, they marveled and left him and went away. They went away. Are you with me? They were now trying to quantify and qualify their rationale, but they went away. And it says, verse 23, on that day, Sadducees, who? He said, these who came next, he put away the Herodians, now those who were sad, you see, came to him. They believed there was no resurrection. And asked him, saying, Teacher, Moshe said that if anyone should die having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise offspring for his brother. And there were with us 7 brothers, and the first died after he had married, and having no children, left his wife to his brother. In the same way, the second also, and the third unto the 7th. And last of all, the woman died too at the resurrection. Remember, they don't believe in the resurrection, but they're asking a question about the resurrection, again, to try and trap him in his own words. That's what they're doing. And so, verse 29, and Yeshua answering said to them, you go astray. In essence, he's saying, you have committed a logical fallacy. You've missed the point. Not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of Elohim. You don't know it. For in the resurrection, they do not marry, nor are they given in marriage, but are as the messengers. They are as the angels of Elohim in the Shemaim, in the heavens. In the resurrection, there is no giving and taking in marriage. Enjoy your marriage now. He said, if you had understood the scriptures, you would never have asked this question. And it seemed here that having said that, they found themselves to be in an asinine state. It was silly because these here, the Sadducees, these were the rulers, and they're supposed to know the word. That's why we're told that we should do what? Study the word to show ourselves approved unto Yah. And so, as I indicated earlier, we have heeded the call, come, let us reason. So we're seeing how Yahshua reasoned with these men. First the Herodians, next the Sadducees. And he's just dismissing them with reasoning one by one. And so you see. And so verse 34 now comes to our aid. And he says, but the Pharisees, having heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, the news is getting around. He's saying every one of these intellectual heavyweights that have come to him, he just dismissed them. And he's not using weapon, he's just using the word, because the word is offensive to them who don't believe the truth. That's what he's doing. But the Pharisees, having heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together, and one of them, one learned of the Torah, questioned, trying him, and saying, you see, consistently, this is a lawyer. This is a doctor of the law. And he comes now. They're sending their best to trap the king of the universe. That's how foolish man gets. You didn't hear me. Man says he's going to build highways in the heavens. He's going to go up and he's going to live on the planets. Man says that. Isn't that what he says? That's what they say. And so when you hear them speak in that way, you owe it to yourself to turn to the book of Psalm. You better come with me there quickly and keep your finger right there in Matthew, because we're coming back. And whatever we promise, we will do, because we have to follow the Messiah. Messiah said he's coming back, and so we're coming back. In Psalm 2, what does the word say? The word wants to know, why do the Gentiles, why do the nations rage? Why? And who can deny that the nations today are raging? There is war over there in Gaza. There is street fighting and riots in England. There is trouble and tension here in America. And if you should go to the continent of Africa, there is trouble brewing everywhere. If you go other parts of Europe, there is a trouble brewing in every single place you can conceive. And he who speaks outside of the dimension of time, years ago through King David, he wants to know, why do the nations rage? You see the accuracy of it? He knew down the ages man would become so troubled and so powerful in his own eyes, leaning only on his own understanding. He's asking, why do the Gentiles rage and the peoples meditate emptiness? The sovereign of the earth take their stand. Did you hear that? The kings of the earth, they're taking a stand. What stand are they taking? And the rulers take counsel together. They come together. We call it the United Nations. And in other groups, they call it the G7. They come together to counsel. Who would have known this? The accuracy of this was spoken by David years ago, is letting you know what the end time would be. They come together in the United Nations and they come to take counsel from each other. It's here. Who are they taking counsel against? Let's read it. And the sovereign of the earth take their stand. They take their lectern. You didn't hear me. They take their microphone and they stand in the United Nations headquarters and they speak. And the rulers take counsel together against who? Against Yahweh. And against his Messiah, Amashiach. They're taking counsel against Yah and against his son. Yah says a marriage should be with one man and one woman. The Supreme Court on the 26th of June, 2015 said it is all right for two people of the same sex to get married. They're taking counsel against Yah. Yah says, remember the seventh day to keep it holy. They said, no, the first day of the week could be the Sabbath. They're taking counsel against Yah. Yah says in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 2 that the first month of the year is Nisan. They said, no, it's January. They're counseling against Yah. They're meeting. Yah said the evening on the morning is one day, evening on the morning, second day, evening on the morning, third day. They say no, from midnight to midnight is one day. They are taking counsel against Yah. They're doing that. Verse 3, let us tear apart their bonds and throw away their ropes from us. That which Yah has put for us as a guide for us to walk upright and not stumble in darkness, they say, let's take it away. Let's not listen to what the word is saying. But the word in verse 4 says, he who is sitting on the Shemaim, that's the heavens, laughs. Yah has a sense of humor, doesn't he? He laughs. And I believe with derision at them. Yahweh mocks at them. That's what the word says. Then he speaks to them. How? In his wrath. You didn't hear me. The writer here of Psalm 2 is letting you know that Yah, when he speaks in his wrath, he sometimes speaks by way of earthquakes, tornadoes, floods. Are you with me? That's his wrath. All the resources of nature are in his hands, and he can use them and dispose with them and all the things he wants to dispose of with them He speaks in his wrath. Wow. And so, verse 6, but I have put my sovereign on Zion, my Kodesh mountain, I inscribed for a law. Yahweh has said to me, you are my Ben, you are my son. Today I have brought you forth. Ask of me, and I make the Gentiles your inheritance. All those people you see with their wealth and their power, Yah says, I'm going to make them your inheritance. I'm going to do that. So we understand that, like the Pharisees, like the Herodians, today's people are no different. They're trying to trap Yah in his word by way of their action. Yah says marriage is between a man and a woman. They say, no, it's not that. And so we see, let's come back to Matthew 22. So he disposed of the Herodians and then the Pharisees, the Sadducees. Now the Sadducees heard. And so they want to know. They come to trick him too. Are you with me? And when the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them, that's, what do you think concerning Amashiach? What do you think? This is after the Pharisees had asked him, which is the greatest commandment? Now, again, you see their fluidity of foolishness. It keeps flowing. Understand, these were in their high great men. These men were upstream. These scientists today, theologians and others, scholars, they are drinking downstream. So the water is not as pure. Are you with me? It's polluted. And so he told them the commandments. You're asking the author of the commandment, which is the greatest? And they're saying this, they're asking this question in the context of the fact that there are 613. And so he has to go through now, do some kind of research, analysis, and come back with an answer and tell them which is the great. Because these are lawyers. Are you with me? And so what they realized that the Herodians tripped up. The Sadducees also tripped up. So they bring the best evidence now. The Pharisees. And he said to them, the greatest commandment? Love Yah. And love your fellow men. That ought to strike them. Because he's saying, if you had loved me, you would never have asked some of these questions to try and trap me. Love Yah and love your fellow man. That's the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like unto that one. Love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two, not 613, on these two, 1A and 1B, hang all the other laws. And put that in your cupboard. Put that in your church. Put that in your courtroom. Are you with me? If you understand that, then you will never be like you are. You will always give justice to where justice is deserved. But you're not like that. You claim to love Yah, but you don't love your fellow man. You have nations now saying, we don't want immigrants in our country. As if the country belongs to them. The word, as I read it, I hear it said, The earth is Yah and the fullness thereof and everything that dwells in it. And you are now coming saying it's yours. And people are rioting. People who themselves were immigrants into the nation are now saying the nation belongs to them. Are you with me? That's what they're saying. So Yeshua, it says that, verse 41, let's go there. And when the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them, saying, because they run out of questions now. Are you with me? They have no more questions. They have no more groups to come. The Herodians have been, the Sadducees have been, and the Pharisees have been. So you've asked all your questions, right? You're empty now. Let me ask you a question. So Yeshua is asking them a question. He said, what do you think concerning Amashiach? Whose son is he? That said to him, of David. He said to them, then how does David in the Roar calls him Adonai, saying, how is it? How could he be David's son and David calls him master? Answer me. Remember, these people were studying the scriptures and they knew. They read Micah 5 too. They understood that. And they knew even a child could answer that question, that he's the son of David. And they said, son of David. And he said, all right, if that's the son of David, come, let's reason together. If he is the son of David, if Amashiach, the Messiah, is the son of David, why then does David call him master? In your Bible, it says Lord. But we know he was speaking about a British baron. We know that. How then does David call him Adonai? If he is David's son, he wants to know. Verse 44 said to Adonai, sit on my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. If then David calls him Adonai, how is he his ben? How is he his son? Are you with me? And no one, did you hear that? Verse 46. And no one was able to answer him a word. And from that day, from when? From that day on, no one asked him any more questions. That's how you silent people. Don't be afraid to take questions from them, because they will come and try and trap you, and they will cite texts, one-line texts and one-line statements to try and diffuse the integrated message that Yah has sent to us. Many different books, several writers of the book, but it's an integrated message. And even though these men who wrote in different eras and they did not know each other, the message is still integrated. So we have unity in the diversity of languages and in cultures, in the word. Are you with me? That's what we need to understand. But Yeshua here, when he spoke like that, he was quoting from Psalm 110. So come with me there, Psalm 110. He was quoting Psalm 110. Come with me. And Psalm 110 says, Yahweh said to Adonai. Yahweh said to who? Adonai. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. He's quoting Psalm 110. And verse 2 says, Yahweh sends your mighty scepter out of Zion. Now, why did they not get this? Why did they not understand this? Why? As you well know, Jerusalem sits on a hill. You know that. And so it doesn't matter whether you're coming from the south or you're coming from the north. People always say, we're going up to Jerusalem. That's what they say. And you also know that many of the countries east of Jerusalem, they write from right to left. And many of the countries that are west of Jerusalem, they write from left to right. Like in England, Russia, Cyrillic, Greek, and Europe, they write from left to right. But in Arabic and Hebrew and Asian and Persian, they write from right to left. So when you read this text in Psalm 110 and you read it in the Hebrew from the right to the left, where you see, and Yahweh said to Adonai, Yahweh we will know, because we know that's the Yud. Yud Vav He. Moses did ask that question. What is your name? He said, Yud Vav He. But the rendering of Adonai here in the Hebrew, you don't see it in the English. You have a Yud at the end of it that makes it a what? Possessive noun. It's a possessive noun. And it changes the whole thing. And that's why David is saying, my master, my Elohim, my Adonai. It's possessive. And he's asking them, why does David call him that? And so you want to pick up that theme now in Matthew chapter 5. Come with me to Matthew chapter 5. Let's consolidate the point that I'm making in regards to that. Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Do not think that I have come to destroy the Torah or the what? Nebim, the prophets, the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. Some Bible says to fulfill. To Isaiah says to magnify. I came to magnify so it becomes clearer to you. For truly I say to you, till the Shemahim and the earth pass away, one yud or one tittle shall no means pass from the Torah till all is done. Did you get that? In Psalm 110, a yud, is added to Adonai that makes it possessive. And so Yeshua is letting you know in Matthew chapter 5 that one yud means a lot. Until everything. If we were saying that in English, we would say, you got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And so a yud there in Adonai is like we would call an apostrophe. That makes the difference. And so when he asked them that question, they could not understand. They committed a logical fallacy. And come with me also to the book of Revelation. That's Azon, chapter 22. Revelation chapter 22. Because the wisdom of Yah is such that we've got to understand that unless he reveals things to us, we cannot understand it all. And so Revelation chapter 22, the word says that, and he showed me, this is Yohanan writing, a river of water of life, clear and crystal, coming from the throne of Yahweh and of the Lamb. And in the middle of the street, and on the other side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit upon every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation. Come with me to verse 16. I, Yeshua, have sent my messenger to witness these to you in the assemblies. Did you hear that? He said, I've sent my messengers to witness these to you, to show you these things. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. Let's hold it there. The question he asked them in Matthew 22 is, how could David call him master, call him Adonai, and yet he is David's son? It's paradoxical. How could the older be the son of the younger? And you understand when the word said in verse 46, no man ask him any more questions. And I would ask you today, elder, priest, bishop, because that question is a contemporary question too. It was not only asked to a generation back then, but also a subsequent one like ours. And so the question emerges. If he is the son of David, why does David call him master? He's telling us here in verse 16. He says, I am the root of who? Of David. I am older than Jesse. I'm older than Obed. I'm older than Boaz. I'm older than Salmon. Before Abraham was, I am. Are you with me? He said, I was before all of them, but I condescend in such a way that I make myself a brethren like you. I come in the form of a man, so I'm also the offspring of David. Isn't it the root that supports the branches? The root comes and then the offspring comes up. He's saying, I am both the root and I'm an offspring, a branch. He's answering the question. And therefore, Isaiah had long prophesied 700 years before this. Isaiah says, for unto you a what? A child is born. That's the offspring. But unto you a son, the root, is given. That's what the word wants us to know. So we have to come and reveals these things to us because we are reasoning now. Come, this is the faculty of divine reasoning. That's what he wants us to know. So these sometimes are daunting questions, perplexing and troubling question. And when we read, that philosopher in us is awakened, isn't it? As we search, that sage in us is awakened by the roar. That erudite man, that erudite woman is awakened in us. And so when that spirit is awakened and doubts are dispelled and uncertainty is gone, we now cuddle, we hug, we embrace the truth. And the paradox is gone because we now better understand what Yah is actually saying. So the legacy that has been left by the prophets and the apostles and the disciples, they come alive to us in the word, because on each page, whether you see it or not, there is someone in that page. Each page testify of one man, Yeshua, Messiah. And he says, you cannot understand that because you live in time. You live in time. And what he has done, he had made time. And the book of Genesis told us that he made time and he put man in time and he sits outside of time, so he knows everything that is going to happen in time. He says, come, let's reason together, and I will show you what's going to happen in time. He says, time consists of 7,000 years. He says, I made a week, 7 days. 6 I give to you. And Peter wants to explain that to us in 2 Peter 3 and verse 8. Peter says, don't be ignorant of this one thing, because one of your 24-hour day is equal to 1,000 celestial years. Are you with me? One 24-hour terrestrial day is equal to 1,000 celestial years. So if you are wise, if you are a child or you're among the children of Issachar, not the 87,000, the 200, you will understand that man probation is 6,000 years, which we're nearly at 6,000 years. And when he comes, the millennium, the period we call the millennium, is really the Sabbath day. So when we meet today, we are only rehearsing for that Sabbath, which is going to be 1,000 years long. That's the day when the scripture here speaks, the day of the Yah. The day of the Yah is not a 24-hour day. It's 1,000 years. And perhaps with that, you now better understand what he says in Genesis. He told Adam, Adam, the day you eat of that fruit, you shall die. And I've heard theologians and scholars and others, you ask them the question, as Yeshua would ask the Pharisees and the Herodians and the Sadducees question. As I indicated earlier, you must always question the questioner and expose them to their assumptions. Yeshua said, the day, which day? The day you eat of that fruit, you shall die. And so I pose that question this morning. Did Adam die the day he ate the fruit? And most people would say no. But I would say on the strength of the word, he did die. Well, what do you mean, elder? Well, the word said in Genesis chapter 5 that Adam died at the age of 930. He died at the age of 930. But Peter says, rightly said, one day, one celestial day is 1,000 years. So Adam did not live a day. No man has lived a day. Methuselah did not live a day. Adam was 70 years short of a day. And so he died within the celestial day that Yah said he would die. He did die. But because we are so feeble in thought, we have conceived that Yah, who sits outside of time and speaks outside the dimensionality of time, we think he's talking about a 24-hour time. No, he's not. He's not. And so Adam died. And we are Adam's children. And so as we inquire and we look at the legacy of what they have left for us, we see that there is many things for us to learn, because the reality of that which exists but we cannot see is beyond the range of our comprehension. You probably would only see that through your pineal gland when you are linked to the Messiah himself. Are you with me? We cannot appropriately conceive life's bigness. We cannot. And that's why I say wisdom doesn't reside in the dogma and the creedal statements of an organization. It's in the word of Yah. It's in the word of Yah. So we must learn the hospitality of wisdom. And we must search the word to ascertain the epistemology of our faith, the knowledge of our faith. That's what we're trying to do. And so, as elders and leaders, we should be crying out to our communities. Oh, yes, we should be doing that where there is danger, and we should be carrying the word like fire extinguishers to put out the fires. No, they deployed soldiers and they deploy policemen and they deploy the National Guard. No, we need to deploy the word of Yah where, like a flood, where the fires are raising up in our community. You cannot legislate morality. You can't do that. Yes, has come. Let's reason together. And let's reach the people's heart. Are you with me? Let's see the virtues in the word and present this against the logical fallacy of these so-called bright men of our time. And so that's why the psalmist says in Psalm 34, you know it well, 11, come ye children, hearken unto me, and I will teach you the fear of Yah. What man is he that desireth life, and loveth many days that he may see? Keep thy tongue from speaking evil, and thy lips from speaking vile. Depart from evil, do good, seek peace, and pursue it. When the heart is converted, when the mind is linked to Yah, the tongue will never speak vile. In Yeshua's name I pray. And let the church say, let the assembly say, hallelujah.